Well, good evening, guys, and welcome to my very first time introducing you to what we're doing here at Sparkle and Shine. We play with a lot of glittery different things, and we play with a lot of different materials. Right now, we're working on quite a few resin projects. We got a huge craft fair coming up this weekend. We also do mixed media with wood and metal and all kinds of other things that we like to try and test out and stick inside resin projects. We also do work with fabric and sewing and ribbon and floral work and all kinds of other fun things here at Sparkle and Shine. In our tiny studio, we're going to test out some fun stuff today. So pardon the molds. We're working with messy molds just because this is some mica powder that got stuck in here. And we're going to bring this up a little closer so you can see what happens here. So we brushed, pardon my dirty fingers, we were out gardening today. We brushed a lot of mica powder in here, and this stuff was something that we got off Amazon, and it's this chameleon powder, and I have it in various assortments of colors and shapes and different little jars. And what we did was we took and we brushed this stuff into these molds just to see how it would take to some of the resin that we were working with, and it did work out pretty well. But some of the textured molds, these little gem molds right in here, those tend to retain the resin. This is a really, really shiny mold. This one, I believe, was the Blue Moon Beads mold from Michaels. I just wanted to get some of these little gems turned out in here. And when that happened, sometimes the stuff sticks inside the mold, and it'll kind of give you an idea of what happens there. So if you can see, like, some of the resin that we were working with didn't quite cure all the way. And some of the resin took really well to the mica powder. Some of it didn't. We were trying to see what would happen when we pour the resin in over the top of the mica powder rather than mixing it in. So these little shapes all wind up getting stuck inside other pieces, and they actually turn out kind of cool. If you check out my Instagram, I have an Instagram feed that'll show you some of what happened with some of these, and they make nice little inserts into clear resin stuff. You can catch me as Fun, Lovin, Jane, on all the socials, except here. This one will be Sparkle and Shine. This will be the Union of Sparkles. So we're going to show you all of the fun things that we're going to do here at the Union and all the little experiments. So I'm not a professional. I got into this making props for theater, and I used resin to craft a bunch of handmade props for youth theater productions. So some grown-ups that were there told me that I should get into this, and it's been a fun ride. We started with epoxy pouring because we needed something durable for the kids to throw around that wasn't going to break. And we kind of graduated here now to UV resin because we have some smaller molds that I wanted to cycle over faster. So deep pouring 2-part AB 1-to-1 epoxy resin, that takes quite a while to set. Right now we just finished a deep pour, and we'll do some videos on that another time. And those take about a day or two to set. These should only take a couple of minutes. Now, I use a variety of different types of UV resins, and I've tried a bunch of different mediums to put them in, mix stuff in with them. Already getting gold powder everywhere. I just finished a nice shiny gold pour. We got a gift from a friend of ours who decided to help us out with some projects. So this cool kit came today from Signature Crafts. I'm going to apologize for the closeness of it and the shininess of the light. This is a really cool kit. These things you can find at Michaels and various other crafty retailers here. I'm going to apologize for the blurriness of the videos. And this comes with this tiny little mold. And it's going to come with the earring findings that go with that mold. So you got gold and silver in there, which is pretty cool. It's a really neat kit. And it comes with a good-sized bottle of resin. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. That's going to have a 200-gram bottle in this kit. And they wanted us to try this kit because it looks pretty cool. These molds are pretty shiny, so I would expect that, you know, with the clear shininess here in the brand new molds versus my messy ones here, these ones are what they look like when they come from the store at Michael's. So before you start messing with it and cleaning it out and using it over and over again, they are going to come out looking like this right away. Now, what I do is I have these tiny little spray bottles from Dollar Store. I go to Dollar Tree. I get these. I believe they come in a 2-pack if I'm not mistaken. I use these for tiny little projects like this and for my silicone cups here. So these are a great investment. I bought a huge pack of these on Amazon, and they're a huge time saver and money saver. If I'm doing a very large rainbow pour or I'm doing a multicolor pour, I'll either use a split cup or I'll use a disposable cup, because I don't want to keep going back and forth having washed these out. I don't have too many of them. I think I only have like 5 or 6. So the disposable cups I save for like bigger, more complex pours, but those little cups are great because you can wipe them out in between. You can cure the resin and pop the hardened like film resin out of those and just wipe them real clean, real quickly in between pours. The other fun thing we got in our package today was the Signature Crafts UV lamp. So this is the Signature Crafts UV lamp, and it's got 3 little buttons on there. Your little buttons are going to be your 99-second button, your 60-second button, and your 30-second button here. And the timer will show up. The UV light will come on. Pardon me while I'm messing with this here. The UV light will come on. It is USB. I have it plugged into a USB double port, so I have my light on while I'm also doing that. There's 12 LEDs in that thing. This thing's pretty cool. This is also at Michael's. I thought about getting this, but then I already had one. So it's got 12 LED bulbs. It's got 3 timer setting. Again, I really apologize for the fuzziness of this. I'm trying to stay zoomed into the project itself. But that's kind of what the box looks like. It's going to have this little stripe on it, Signature Crafts logo in the corner. The other fun thing that we're going to go ahead and work with today is we got some Signature Crafts slivers. So we're going to do some leaves and some fun stuff. And then we got some Signature Crafts really cool rainbow gold. So I want to do these. I have this bigger mold from Michael's as well, and I really do like these big drop earrings. This has gold flake inside of it. There's gold leaf like basically stuck to the inside of this mold. And it's fine. It'll eventually come out, but I think it'll look kind of cool. That's why I want to use these today with the gold and the green. We're going to do these. But what I want to do first is play with this a little bit and do these little guys here. You can kind of see them right there. So the miniature versions, we're going to make a couple of mini ones, and we're going to pop them inside the big ones and do a multi-layer mold with this UV resin and see what happens. I want to test this resin for a couple different reasons. Now, I was not a huge fan of Signature Crafts at first. I'll be the first one to admit it. And when this goes public, the boss at the company will understand what I'm talking about. You have to make sure that you're using the correct lamp when you are curing UV resin. Not all UV resins are created equal. Not all of them use the same UV products. I have 3 or 4 different types of UV sources. I want to try their products with their kit, because in a lot of cases, the lamps are designed to work with the resin that the company makes. Now, there are higher powered UV lamps that I use for bigger molds and deeper stuff. And then I have, of course, you know, little handy dandy UV flashlight. Now, living in the UP, I have UV everything. For those of you who have not visited the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there was a runoff of rocks that actually glow in ultraviolet light. So they're sodalite, otherwise known as Upper lights, is what they were officially named back in 2016. So anyone who lives up here in the UP probably has a UV lamp laying around somewhere. Some sort of flashlight that they can take out to the beach in the summer and find these rocks after they wash up. They're pretty neat. They glow orange. But anyways, so when you're using UV resin, you want to make sure that you have the proper lamp for what you're trying to cure. Most nail polish lamps, in fact, I actually have a smaller version of the Signature Crafts lamp. And again, I'm going to apologize. My fingers were absolutely filthy when I came back from working in the yard today. And so I have a permanent stain of garden soil on the edges of my fingers. So you will see that my button is a little bit dirty. And this is an old ASP All Season Professional UV gel nail lamp. And this little guy is pretty sweet. You can get these at Sally Beauty Supply. I totally forgot I had this thing, and it's become a lifesaver and a convenience. These are also USB. They're going to be micro USB in the back. So even if you lose your cable, that's super convenient. So this is nice. It's got a 30-second and a 60-second timer. I usually do 90 seconds on a lot of my cures. So I'll hit the button twice to get my 60, once to get my 30. And you'll see underneath, it is dirty, so I apologize for that. And I've got all kinds of fun dye all over it. You'll see underneath it's got the 6 lights. So it is really good for these tiny little molds. And obviously it's meant for nails, so it's going to be about the size of your, your fingers there. But that has been a lifesaver for traveling stuff, and it's been really great for the smaller pieces. So when I'm doing little things like my cupcakes or my hardened stickers, so we're getting ready for Pride Fest coming up this weekend. So I've been doing a lot of these UV stickers, coating both sides with UV, making them pretty hard. You can hear that. And this helps keep them stable when I put them into a project, because if you try to put stickers, especially metallic stickers, inside of 2-part epoxy pour resin, they'll actually start to curl and bend in a way that you don't want them to. So these little fun guys, got these for some of my Pride Fest pours. These guys are metallic, and what I mean by that is if you take a look at these are paper on the back, glitter on the front. These are all metallic, so they're kind of like a really thin aluminum foil. You can kind of see they're metal all the way around. The back is irrelevant to me that it's messy like this, because it's going to be facing away from whoever is looking at this piece. So they're really only going to see the front. Usually when I do a paper pour, or where I'll pour something over a piece of paper like this, I'll harden it first. And in a lot of cases, if it's a double-sided clear project, I'll wind up sticking these together, so that way they're reflective of each other. So if the piece gets turned over and it's clear, you're going to see the rainbow from both sides. So let's get back to our little project that we're going to work on right now. This little guy is going to be these leaves. Let's kind of turn it back around here so we know what we're working with. We're going to do these leaves, and then we have this Craft Smart green pigment, the Signature Crafts glitter. Well, that's their glitter slivers, so they're shavings of glitter. And then we have the Signature Crafts really awesome iridescent gold. So it does look like super rainbowy in this, but it is actually an iridescent glitter. And then I have some acrylic gems that we might try to pop in to the bigger pieces. So we're going to see how this goes. Let's go ahead and do these first. And I want to do these gold and a little bit of green in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the lamp is off, and it is. You don't want to have any source of UV light going on when you're doing these, just because it will instantly help cure it, and we don't want that. So this little guy, just going to make sure I got it completely wiped out here. I think I took the lid off of this, maybe not. We just opened this Light Cure UV resin, high gloss, hard. And let's get that off of there. Should have been prepared before I started my video here. Sorry for the delay, folks. Should play the Jeopardy music while I make you wait while I peel off this lid here. So just be aware that when you do open it, a lot of resins have this. I've only run into one less expensive resin that does not have this. And it's kind of odd that it wouldn't, but sometimes it does. Sometimes the ones that don't have that, they'll have a cut on the top, meaning that when you open the lid and you take the screw lid off, it'll be sealed on the end, and you'll have to cut it with a pair of scissors. This one's not. This one's open, so it's going to have that seal, which I kind of prefer, because then you're not running the risk of spilling it. But let's get a little bit of this into here. I only want to do a little because these molds are tiny. So we're going to do a little bit at a time. And I'll show you how to get rid of bubbles here in a minute if we have an issue with that. But I don't foresee that happening. Got my popsicle sticks on the ready. So I do have these awesome metal tools too. So what these are is these are carving tools. They're in the wood carving crafting aisle at Harbor Freight Tools. These are a lot easier to clean and a lot easier to keep handy. Just for time's sake though, I am using the popsicle sticks because I don't have the time to be cleaning these in between while we're trying to do this. So let's do some of this. And I'll use those metal ones throughout this video to kind of show you how I scoop my glitter out too, because I don't like to dump my glitter because then it gets everywhere, unless I'm in a huge hurry, but we're not tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop some of that. Oh my goodness, look at that sparkle. I'm going to throw some of that sparkle in there. I'll give it a little bit more. I love me some sparkle. Just remember that the more inserts you add into a resin product, the longer it's going to take for the light to reach the resin to actually cure it. So for instance, if it's darker, it's going to take a hot second to get down to the bottom to cure this. So let's kind of spin that in there. Give it a good little mix. Anytime you mix something into a resin product, even if it's pre-cured like the stickers or something like that, you still want to make sure everything is coated. This is not as do or die time sensitive as if you were mixing 2-part epoxy resin. The longer you wait with a 2-part, the warmer it gets and the faster it cures. So that's good and bad in some cases, but for right now, we just want to take our time and kind of let it flow back and forth and get that mixed in there. There we go. All together. Now we're going to go ahead and pour that into one of these little guys. I like to wipe the sticks on the edge and then pull them away so that I have a dry edge to work with. Let's let that kind of flow in there and get into all little leaves and all little nooks and crannies. This should be more than enough to get these both done in one shot. Sometimes I tend to under pour these, which when I first started messing with these littler molds, I was over pouring them because I was so used to the big heavy 2-part pours. Now I do follow quite a few resin pours online, and I've started to watch their tips and tricks and experiments and all the things. Let's kind of get that in there. I do want to touch it a little bit and just kind of tuck it into the holes there. Now usually what I'll do, let's get this off the edge here. Let's set that aside for just a second. What I like to do is grab a Q-tip and kind of run it along the edges with some alcohol just to get the excess resin off of there. It saves me the time of having to go back and sand the edges with a little sanding stick. So let's do this. And we'll go ahead and just kind of clean up these edges a little bit. Make sure there's no excess resin floating around the edges in there. There's a little bit, but it's not terrible. We should be fine. Just kind of pulling it into the mold away from the edges just to make sure that we're not winding up with any like stray sharp sides. Got that done. Now let's grab our lamp. I'm going to face it the other direction, and we're going to go ahead and do that. So you saw it is upside down, so I'm going to apologize for that, but I have a tiny table that I'm working with this evening. You did see that when I put that over there, it's got a sensor inside that it can tell you that there is something in there. So it's automatically sensing that there's a product in there. It's going to count down from that 99, so we're at 79. And it's going to bring you down to the last few seconds that you're working with. Pardon me. Get that caffeinated water going there. And we'll just kind of see how this works. And as soon as this is done, it should shut off. And I've watched a few videos with this UV lamp before, so and remember, we're testing these, so this is kind of an unboxing party we're having here. So we're down to 43, 42, 41. I really want to see how this 12 LED versus the 6 works out. I did not have the greatest time curing the Signature Crafts resin at first, and I wonder if it's just because the strength of the lamp that I was using, like it was recommended to me. So we're going to see what happens with these two little guys first. Then we're going to try and pour the bigger one and put these little guys inside the bigger one and see what happens. Because I really want to see this come out with lots of sparkle, because we do love some sparkle. Keep in mind, it's okay to mix sparkles together too. If they're pairing and they match and they look cute, there's nothing wrong with taking what you have left in your little mixing cup and mixing it with another sparkle if it's complementary. We do love ourselves some glitter here. So let's take a look, and we're going to kind of just, I'm going to tap these real quick and just see. I want to tap the back here because it looks pretty good from both sides. So let's kind of mess with it because that's 90 seconds. And it is kind of warm, and that's going to happen. So we're going to gently kind of push on these and see what happens when they come out here. They're actually pretty hard, so I'm not too disappointed with that. They're very cute. If you pop these out and they are still soft, just gently pull back on it and see how that's kind of coming out very slowly there. It's very warm. So there's no strings, there's no missing pieces, there's no holes or gaps. It is a little tacky, but I didn't leave it in there for too long because remember, we're not finishing these like this. We're going to stick them into a bigger piece. So we have these. We have a little bit of this really awesome iridescent glitter. This stuff is really pretty. Take a look at this, guys. That is just absolutely gorgeous. That glitter is beautiful. That's going to look so great even in an epoxy 2-part pour. So now let's take these and put them in their bigger boys. And we want them facing the same direction. I kind of want them to look cute. So let's flip them upside down back the way they came out of the mold. Because if you look, you'll see there's kind of a divot there. You see almost a reflection. It's a little concave. So I didn't fill it all the way for a reason because we want to stick them in here. If you were making these and finishing them with these 2 little pieces like this, you'd want to make sure that you cure them all the way and fill the mold completely. So now let's stick these in here. And we're going to do this in 2 parts. Because this is a deeper mold, I don't want to pour this really thick and take forever to cure. So let's do a little bit of a thin pour first. And we're going to kind of like straighten these out a little bit because I kind of want them a little bit even. I mean, it's not the end of the world if they're a little crooked because I think it might look a little cute having it offset like that. But it's okay to have that little divot in there since we're doing that. If you were leaving those the way they are and leaving them as earrings that way, I personally probably would top them off with a little bit more resin. That's just me though. So we're going to do that. And this resin with the sensor is going to get unplugged for a second. Resin lamp. So now let's play with the slivers. So these slivers are really cool. I want to see what they look like and how they come out in these leaves. So we're going to mix just a little bit. Ooh, these kind of popped off. They're having a party in a bottle there. It's kind of, these ones I don't mind just kind of tapping in there just to kind of shake a little in and see what happens. It's probably going to be easier than trying to scoop them because they're not actual glitter. They're more like confetti. So, and confetti is fun too. We're going to leave that just like that for 1 second. We'll cap these back off so these bad boys don't escape on us while we're trying to do this. Yes, my entire studio is completely covered in glitter, and that's totally fine. So let's give these a gentle stir. Make sure all of that confetti gets kind of mixed in there. And I'm okay with this being a little bit translucent and clear and not having a whole lot of color, because we're going to go over the back of it with some color, because I do want to see how this resin cures with dye, because I do use a lot of alcohol dye or alcohol inks. The alcohol that I use is mostly transparent. I try not to use opaques unless I'm working on something specific. And really the only opaque that I have is going to be like a teal or blue to do more like the watery looking effects. And then I have the white to create the wave effect. Now I kind of like that with the iridescent glitter still in there. So I thought that would look cute, keeping that in there and not wiping it in between. And it did turn out pretty cool. Because remember, we are doing these for Pride Fest. So we want them to be very sparkly and rainbowy. I mean, I would do them like this every day. So that's just me though. Hey, that's why we call ourselves Sparkle and Shine, right? So I'm going to grab this piece here. That's gold leaf. And I think it'll look kind of neat having the extra gold leaf in here to begin with anyways. So let's just kind of go over the top of this little guy real quick. And I only want to go over the center right this second. I'm not trying to go over the other pieces just yet, because I'm going to show you how we're going to tuck that in there. So let's leave that for just a second. And what I want to do is kind of take my stick and push it into each one of the edges of the leaves here. Get it kind of filled in there. This is going to take a little bit longer to cure just because it is a bigger mold. So let's get some thin set in there first. And then we'll go back over it with a little bit more. But I want to get some of that green, stringy, confetti looking stuff in there first. Go back in here. Spread some of this confetti love out in each little nook and cranny in this leaf. Get that all set in there. because we know it's going to stick. Like the gold leaf is still there. You can still see it. But let's grab some of that confetti and stick it into each little cranny in here. Let's pour a little bit more in this bad boy because this side doesn't have nearly as much in the crannies. Get that in there. And let's kind of use the dry side here to scrape the edges off because we don't want any extra edges on these earrings because that's going to cause us a lot of problems later. Oops, here we go with the spillage. At least I'm not over pouring into the next mold, so that would be super fun if I was doing that. And I'm just going to kind of tap some of this green stuff into each one. Make sure each one has just a little bit until we get to the next layer. Because UV resin, you really don't want to pour the same as AB epoxy resin because it will not set properly if you do that. In my experimentation, it is very sticky if you try to do that. Now, I will oftentimes use UV resin to glue stuff. So I will pour it in and then let it set and then pour epoxy resin over it. Now, you want to make sure when you're doing that, though, that it's completely hardened and set before you pour the epoxy two-part over the top. Otherwise, the epoxy is going to create a layer over the top of the UV. Same goes the other way around. You don't want to be pouring and hardening UV over the top of epoxy, or you're not going to have the air in there and the outside temperature that the epoxy needs to fully cure all the way. And we got that little guy all set. Now let's bring this back over here. Plug our little UV sensor lamp back in, and we'll get it back over here and do it the opposite way this time. Let's bring it in this side. And we're going to go with the 99 seconds. This is going to be a long video because this is just kind of introducing the unboxing series while we get ready for Pride Fest. We'll do some shorter lives later, but this is kind of showing you the process that we're going through, testing out the different types of resins. And there's all kinds of iridescence all over this. So pretty. We are getting distracted very easily and having so much fun with this glitter. And we also are going to do a fun video making tutus and headbands and all kinds of fun ribbon roses. We're going to take some ribbon roses and we're going to epoxy them and put them into other projects. But this is where this is going to be super fun. So let's see what happens here when we do just the 99 seconds. And we're going to do a peel back test and see if it's still sticking to the inside of this mold. If it is, we're going to go back and do it again for probably another 30 to 60 seconds, just because of how large this mold is. Then we're going to go back over with some of this alcohol ink dye and try and see if we can darken it a little bit, because we want to see how dark we can get this and how long it's going to take to cure. And this is a testing process, so next time we do these fun videos and we make them a little bit shorter, we'll already be on that page and we'll know how the Signature Crafts is going to work for the projects that we do. Maybe even the next video we'll wind up doing a live with some pop sockets or something fun. And 12 seconds. This is the reveal, the first test with these new products from Signature Crafts. Signature has been super gracious about having me test out some of these fun things. And this is a blast. I love glitter and I love to open new glitters. So that was the 99-second setting. So let's kind of just tap that and see. It is a little hard. Now, let's kind of look at the other side. It looks kind of neat like that, actually. You can kind of see the back side. See that cute little leaf we did first with the iridescent glitter, and then we have the slivers in there. I want to see, because this is very, very thin, so you're going to see right there, see how the edges aren't full all the way up to the edge of the mold? Totally fine, because we just want to see how thin this sets. So now we're just going to be very gentle, because this is quite a weird mold, and you kind of got to tug on it a little bit to get it to pull apart before you start trying to pop this out. I want to see what happens with the 99-second set. Now it's a little bit soft. See how flexible that is? That should not be that flexible. So with the bigger molds, now we know Signature Crafts will set at 99 seconds, but it's not completely cured. So here's another fun time. Let's flip this back over. You can cure stuff from the back with these like semi-transparent molds. These are not solid clear molds like the ones that you'll see at Michael's and other places. But let's try and do a 60-second cure on the back and see how much that hardens up the resin on the inside. There we go. So I'm messing with the sensor. Probably don't want to stick your hands in there. It's a habit for me to do that just from getting my nails done, knowing that it will come on and off with that. So what you were looking at inside that mold before I started doing this was this guy right here. So this is a multicolor gold leaf. And this is the Rainbow Flakes that's found at Michael's. And this is in the stamping and scrapbooking aisle. This stuff is really cool. So I use quite a bit of this type of stuff from Michael's. I don't search the epoxy aisle for stuff or the resin or the jewelry. I will go up and down scrapbooking stuff. One of my most fun things, and we'll do this in another video, is the Recollections glow-in-the-dark powder. That stuff is pretty cool. It does turn out really well. And if you want a really cool ultra fine gold glitter, the best place I've ever found, no lie, dollar store, $1.25. Huge bottle of glitter. It's literally 15 grams or about a half ounce of glitter, and it is just a lovely, lovely ultra fine glitter. So for those of you who are sparkle fans, that is definitely the route to go when you want to get some good, cheap, ultra fine glitter. Now, back to this little guy. Let's see what happens here. Now it's quite a bit harder. Let's peel that back. Take a look. So see how shiny that is in there? That tells me that that's not completely cured. So we're already at 2.5 minutes with curing this. It's not bad. It is taking some time, and it's not nearly as tacky as it was before I did this. So, and see, we did make a little boo-boo there. We over poured that just a little. To fix that, when it's soft like this, you can usually just wiggle it back in and squish it. And these, I don't mind being textured like this, because this is kind of the look I was going for with this piece anyways. So we're just going to kind of squeeze that back into the mold. And just using your fingernail, or if you don't have fingernails, use any little pokey tool. You can use popsicle sticks, but just be careful how hard you push, because it is possible for them to break in there. So usually either a fingernail or a metal tool of some kind. And you can just kind of give it a little push in there. We're going to go along the edges and just make sure we don't have any extra stuff hanging out there that we got to file off before we do this. So either way, in the end, this is kind of what you want to do in order to make sure that your edges are nice and clean. If you don't do this, you're going to find yourself filing quite a bit when you're done. So the way to kind of solve the sticky problem on this side is to keep going with the upside down light. So meaning like keep it upside down with the solid side of the mold facing the light. We're going to go back and go all the way. Let's do some 99 seconds and see how that works out. And let's get this other pot out of the way. And again, when you're unboxing stuff and you're playing with new things for the very first time, it takes a lot of experimentation like this to get through it. But in the end, really, you'll know by playing with it for about 30-40 minutes whether or not it's actually going to come through for you. So, for instance, when I first started testing out some of my larger molds, I realized that they needed to be poured differently. So, I mean, you make mistakes, but sometimes they turn out cool. So, like, this is all wrinkled along the edge. This is one of my little shot glasses. Pretty cool little guy. But I did find out that that mold can tend to stay soft. But it does make a nice little pen holder because it's cinched at the top. And it kind of is a cute little mistake that happened. After that, I learned that straightening out the molds for that, for the shot glasses, is key to making sure that those tops don't cinch in together and you get like an actual round glass that you can use. And those did turn out quite nice. And I do use food safe molds when I'm doing things like shot glasses or things that people are actually going to put liquids in. Those little shot glass molds are really nice to make tiny little pots too. You can drill small holes in the bottom for drainage. and you can turn them into cute little planters. So that's another fun part too, because we do a lot with real live plants. In another video, we're going to unbox some dried flowers that we've been working with too. So let's take this off of here, see how this turns out. And it is quite warm, and you can feel the shrinkage in here. So let's flip this over as I drop my stuff on the floor here in the studio. And we're going to peel this back again. Look at that. It's not shiny and sticky. So the shininess you're seeing is the clean part of the mold there. And we're going to flip it over and kind of just peel this back, because we're going to pour another layer, so we don't want to take it all the way out. But this isn't actually tacky anymore. So the first time we pulled this out, it was very, very tacky. And now I can run my fingers on here, and if you listen, it's actually got a clicking sound, and that to me tells me that it's hard. So we're going to gently kind of work this back into the mold. So we don't want to take this out quite yet. And then we are going to finish these off. So what I want to do is keep the texture. So we're just going to pour the rest of this little guy in here on both sides. I'm going to scrape some of this in here. And we're just going to kind of put it over the top a little bit. And just finish off the back. A little bit in there. A little bit in there. Get rid of the rest of that in both sides. And then one thing that'll save yourself a lot of time and heartache is if you do have resin inside of these little silicone cups like this, there's no reason why you can't just stick this under a UV light and peel it off. Don't try to spend uber amounts of time scrubbing these and soaking these and getting them super clean. Your UV lamps will help you. And if you are working with 2-part epoxy and doing small tiny pours of different colors in these, there's no reason why you can't set them aside and let them dry. That's another reason why I use disposable cups with epoxy pours, just because I am too lazy to wait for my silicone ones to dry in order for me to get that out and get to the next project. So I'll usually only use these little cups like this for my UV pours. So let's tuck this. Let's tuck this glitter in here. See, we do have some strings going on, and that happens sometimes. We'll try and see. We'll leave that there, and we'll wipe it off in a little bit. We'll tuck these glitter pieces back in here as best we can. And now let's grab the bottle and just top it off. So we're going to use the rest of the, not the rest of the bottle, but we're going to use the bottle to top off the rest. Now what we're doing is we're gently going in here and just kind of making sure it's each little nook and cranny in the corner is full. We want this mold to be level. And we know that it's going to take about 2 minutes to get completely done all the way through. So we already cured the backside. We know the backside's pretty well nice and hard up against the mold itself. So, or the front side for that matter. We're going to just fill in the holes and level it out a little bit. Now we are going to go back with a popsicle stick here in a second. We'll just use the green one that we've been using. Just because it's got glitter on it doesn't mean we can't use it. The more sparkle, the better. Yay. Get this in here. You can kind of start to see it leveling off a little as you fill it up. I'm sorry for the delay, guys. This does take a little bit of time. And there is going to be some residual edging in here. Let's get that in there, make a little drop. We are going to see some bubbles. So here's what we'll do. We'll pull this in here. Kind of go a little faster for time's sake. As I pull away, you guys will see what I'm doing here. So in here, we're just going up each side and kind of just brushing it in there. And then we're going to give the mold a little shaky shake. And we're going to level it out nice and easy. And it's okay that we're going over the earring part. That's easy to pop out if you have a little drill or Dremel or even just a pokey tool to pop that right out. So we're going to give this a little tap. We got a big bubble right there. So remember I told you we were going to talk about how to get rid of bubbles. You won't get these very often with UV resin. Some you do, some you don't. This kind I haven't, even with the kind that didn't cure, I didn't have this problem with bubbles. So I'm going to take that over there and she's gone. I don't like to use heat guns with these little molds just because they can damage the mold really easily because these molds are really thin. So we're going to kind of run our fingers along the outside edge here just to make sure we don't have any weird edges. I don't see any weird edges. And then we're going to top off this here because we see that it's not quite full in these little nooks and crannies. And there's nothing wrong when you're doing a textured piece like this to have a few bubbles. I personally think it adds to the charm of the piece. That's just me though. And then when you're doing pieces that have to do with water or nature, bubbles are natural and there's nothing wrong with that. The bigger ones are the ones that concern me. So like that one that just popped. And a lot of times that's just because you might just be dealing with a thinner resin. The thicker ones that I use tend to not have as many bubbles. Oops, we went a little over on the edge there. Now, it's kind of a big no-no. I generally try not to scrape the edges of my mold with my finger and get resin all over my hands, but my hands are already pretty well established with this stuff. Make sure that you're using proper protection when you're doing this. Don't look directly into the light. Make sure that you are using it in a well-ventilated area. This resin doesn't actually stink, so that's a nice part too. Just a little feedback for those of you that are just getting into resin. Some resins can smell weird, and some resins can have some sort of a chemically smell to them. So let's kind of, here we come with the light. Go back over that bad boy. And we'll start that over. Get that down to that 99 seconds. Underneath this, it's a little bit not full in some of the spots. But the thing about that is you can always go back and top that off afterwards. There's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to see how this comes out with a thicker pour. Now, this resin is a thin coat resin. So it's a light cure, hard type resin. So it's going to be best for those tiny little shapes. So remember, we poured those gold leaves first, and those gold leaves turned out really pretty. Those are super cute. And we purposely kind of under poured them so they had that concave section in the center so that we could stick them into another piece. Had I left them alone, I would have just poured another little bubble to dome them off on the top. Doming them off provides a little bit more texture, and you do that a lot with pendants and earrings and smaller pieces. I will dome off larger pieces if I am purposely under pouring them. Some of my bigger pieces I want a little bit of an edge on, like my bottle openers, because you have to screw hardware into them and you don't want to completely overfill them over the hole. And in those cases, I will dome off larger pieces as well. And with the smaller stuff, it tends to add a lot of dimension when you dome off a piece. So that's where UV resin is kind of helpful for most projects, and you want to get one that is for that reason. Now we're coming up on our last few seconds here. Let's take a look and see how she looks. See how she turned out here. It is very hard. It is very clicky, very hard. It's not sticky. I don't have any residue. I have glitter on my hands, but let's use my middle finger. I don't have any residue there, so let's take a look and see what the inside looks like. Let's go from the back. We don't want to go from the earring hole part because we don't want that to be damaged. It is sticking to the inside of the mold, so let's see what happens when we pull back. Well, yay. I don't see any resin in there. That's a good sign. We're going to be very, 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 very careful with this one just because it is warm and I don't want to bend or break anything too far. Because see, look how small those edges are and the ripples. We don't want to break that. Now, I did over pour a little bit, not the end of the world. We do have tiny little files that we can take that off with, and a lot of times when it's still soft, you can pick it back with a fingernail, and these little pieces will pop off like this. And you want to get it when it's a little bit warm and tacky. But this is where like the picks and the smaller hardware pieces come in handy to get into these little sections like this. In fact, let's go in there a little bit with this little guy. Oh, he's not quite the right shape. This is why I like these Harbor Freight ones. Harbor Freight tools make some really nice little crafty tools. Like there's no reason why you can't go there. Now, taking a look at that, you're going to see that it is a little uneven. And that's okay. we're going to go back over that and we're going to actually just dome it off and pour it down. But look how cute that little leaf is in there. That is super cute. And in some cases, I would back this with a darker color, but because we want these to kind of be bold and in your face and more fun, I probably won't do that with these, just because they are fun. See, now look, this one did come out with a little bit extra resin inside there. Now let's take a look at that. So ideally, I probably should have left this leaf in a little bit longer. Live and learn. Now we know. So to fix that, what I would do in a lot of cases is pop this, either A, you can pop this back in and cure it again, or B, you can leave this out. So I'm not entirely against leaving it out and just spreading a doming coating over the top and doing that, because it's not really that bad. If there was a lot more in here, I would pop this back in and re-cure it. Because again, the texture really doesn't bother me, because we are kind of going for that texture anyways. But if it were a flat piece or a piece that I was intending to be smooth, I would not do that. I would put it back in and get an actual like smooth coating. But we're gonna wipe this and I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. See that? That happens sometimes. That just tells me that I should have flipped the piece over and cured it from this side. So I'm getting much better results now with the Signature Crafts than I was before. This is a user error. This is a simple mistake. So let's just kind of pop that back in there. We're going to cure it up. But in the end, guys, now you can see, when start to finish, the Signature Craft stuff works really, really well. Now, no, we did not use the tiny little molds that came with the kit, because I know that if I use these molds, they're going to come out perfectly fine. Because if you take a look at how small these are, the Signature Crafts is designed for smaller pieces. But I like to play with things and push boundaries. It's fun that way. So we did do a much thicker mold. So because this type of resin is not designed for these big molds, if you really want to use it in these bigger molds, you have to be patient and understand that a mold of this thickness, which is much thicker than the one I just showed you, this is going to take probably 5 to 10 minutes per set like this to do. We took a lot longer because we went step by step, introducing all the little pieces and talking about how we're doing this today. In a normal situation, in all reality, start to finish, including, you know, wiping down in between, would probably be 15-20 minutes. So play around with it. There's no reason why you can't mess with stuff, and this is okay. Like, what I'll do is I'll wind up throwing this under the lamp to cure this and then popping it out of the mold, and it's going to go 10 times faster than just wiping it out. So we look forward to talking to you guys. We look forward to doing more series of videos. This first video is not live just because we wanted to unbox this product and test it, but we'll do a series of shorter videos and fun things later. And we are so excited to join you in this journey of sparkling. And you really need to let your sparkle shine all of the time, guys, all of the time. I cannot wait to see you all face to face on Saturday at Lower Harbor Park in Marquette, Michigan. I will be there all day with all my fun crafts, and then we will be doing live videos from the festival showing everybody what's happening that day and all of the fun stuff that we got for our booth. Next time, we're going to be using some of these fun acrylic gems. We look forward to talking to you soon, guys. Let that sparkle shine.